for online box radio. For DZRJ 810 AM, just type in DZRJ 810 AM on TuneIn Radio, Streama, and Radio Garden. Happy listening! You are watching the multi-awarded Radio Bandido TV on Channel 224 Sky Cable and TV Plus boxes. Simulcast on DZRJ 810 AM. Informing, advising, and entertaining the Filipinos and OFWs around the world. Streaming live on www.facebook.com/DZRJ 810 AM or on YouTube, channel RJAM News. To all Teleradio Bandido viewers and listeners, you can now watch Teleradio Bandido on our new YouTube channel, RJAM News. Hit the subscribe button and like the video. Don't forget to click the bell icon so you get notified when a new video gets uploaded. Don't miss out on our dynamite lineup.
Hello, Philippines, and welcome to the World News Jam right here on DZRJ and RJTV. My name is Eric Lecain, and I'm joined, as always, with Lolly Tolentino. We are here on the Jam. We're on YouTube and Facebook and everywhere across the country. Lolly Tolentino, how are you this week?
Well, Eric, that's a good question all the time. You know what? I always feel beautiful, so week very good to me. Thank you very much. What about you, Eric?
Well, that's good. You know, Lolly, here on the show, we usually start the show out by me saying something horrible that's going on in the world, some new variant that has come out, and then everything. And so this week, though, we're pretty much going to do the same thing. There's a new variant out. But the difference this week is it is a new variant. It is the HIV variant. So HIV. Oh, remember HIV?
Yeah.
HIV.
Do we have a new one now?
Yeah, there's a new one now because HIV has fallen behind in the past couple of years because of the emergence of COVID. So this week the germs of the HIV have their own new variant of their own, and it's more dangerous and more transmissible than any HIV before. So there's my scary news. However, it turns out this new variant, which is called BB, and it's in Europe right now. So far, there's 109 people that have this new variant, and all but 2 of them live in the Netherlands. I'm not really sure why that is. But anyway, the good news is that they use the same treatment. They use the same treatment. I'm not sure what is going on in the studio here. We have some giant echo. But they use the same treatment for the old HIV as they use for the new one, and it has the same effect. The problem is that the disease, it develops much quicker in the body, which means that it spreads faster. So that is the big difference. But it looks like that the same old medicines that they use for the old HIV will work for the new one. And there's a new, some news out for the new variant for Omnichrome. Remember last week we were talking about Omnichrome, that there's now the BA2.
Yes.
The second version of that, and they are now saying that they have discovered that it replicates itself 20 to 50 times faster than BA1. So...
What is this again?
I told you it'd be horrible news. So according to scientists, BA2 is not more dangerous than BA1. So currently, which is good, that's spreading across the United States and Europe like crazy. But with the vaccine, it's just like getting a cold. Now, Lolly Tolentino, you had what we think was Omnichrome.
Yes.
But you had the vaccine. So you did not, if you have the vaccine, Omnichrome is basically like a cold.
I believe so, because that's why, after I've been tested, and I know it's Omicron, and that's why I have a new title now, Miss O. Miss Omicron.
Miss Omnicrom? Are you the new
Yes.
Miss Omnicrom?
Yeah,
You know,
that's
it's
my
a
new
good thing
name.
that you're the Miss Omnicrom and you're not the new variant
the new variant, the
I don't wanna
new
be- I
new
don't-
variant,
I don't want to have the new variant, whatever it is. I don't like.
Neocove. We were talking Neocove last week, which was discovered in South Africa, which is supposedly the most deadly variant that there possibly is. It is closer to the MERS coronavirus. MERS, which stands for Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. Anyway, but the good thing is, so far, it's not yet found in humans, only in bats. So they're just worried. They don't want it to jump from the bats to the humans because then we could be in a really bad situation with the new Neocove. One more piece of horrible news for this week is the fact that in South Africa, lions and pumas at a private zoo have now caught COVID really badly.
Oh, you really?
And they got it from their zoo handlers.
Oh.
So so anyway, supposedly these zoo handlers were asymptomatic and they went in and took care of the lions and the pumas and they gave them the COVID, and the lions and the pumas now they have heavy nasal discharge, they have diarrhea and all these problems, whatever. So but the problem that they're worried about with stuff like this, with these lions and pumas getting it from humans, is they're going to get it from humans, and then it's going to mutate in the lions and the pumas, and then they're going to give it back to the humans, and it's going to be much worse.
Wow. What's going on?
So anyway, so I'm trying to scare everybody, but we don't mean to, really. We're just giving you the news because that's what we do here on the World News Jam. We talk about news from all over the world, some of the most interesting stories. And one of the most interesting stories to me this week is the fact that humans are giving lions and pumas a really bad version of COVID, and they don't want to give it back because, first thing, we have enough problems with the lions and guns, killing the lions with the guns. Now we don't want to be giving them COVID. But anyway, what we do here on the show, Lolly Tolentino, as you know, is we let our viewers send us questions about what's interesting to them in the world, and then we read them and talk about them here on the show.
Yes.
So, Lolly Tolentino, you have a big list of questions right there. Mm-hmm. What are our viewers interested in this week in the world? So we can talk about it here on the World News Jam on DZRJ.
As always, Eric, I have a list of questions for you. All right, let's start with Marge of San Juan. U.S. accuses Russia of planning to film false attack to Ukraine invasion. What is this? What's the latest update?
Isn't this crazy?
Yes, for me it's crazy.
This is just insane. This is like a movie. This is Netflix, basically what it is in real life. But I have to tell you, it's not surprising. They're talking about, it's crazy on the crazy meter, but it's something that it's not so surprising to me. What it is that the U.S. has accused Russia of making a fake film as a pretext for invading the Ukraine. So, as you know, as we've been talking about, Russia has put 100,000 troops along the Ukrainian border, and it looks like an invasion is coming, which will mean all-out war with the U.S. and Russia, which are the two biggest nuclear powers in the world. But Russia knows that if they do this, this will kill their economy. So they need the world to believe that they are there to protect the Russian-loving Ukrainians. So what better way to do this than to create a fake film showing that Ukrainians are attacking them first. And they're going to make it, supposedly going to make it really graphic, showing dead corpses and weapons, but it's all going to be actors and Western-looking weapons that they're using. The original plan was to send in a group of well-trained operatives into Ukraine with, video cell phones that they can use, and they take pictures of these guys, and these guys act like Ukrainian soldiers, the old false flag trick. So then they edit it all together, and then boom, they have a reason to go to war, because they need a reason to go to war, because if they just go to war, then the whole earth is going to be against them, except maybe the Chinese. So anyway, this is a fascinating thing. Now, how does the U.S. know this? Because back in the old days, they planted spies. The Russians have spies in the U.S., and the U.S. has spies in Russia. And some have been there for 40, 50 years, and they're still there.
Spying for each other.
Spying for each other. So they found out this evil plot. And so what the United States is trying to do is they're trying to announce this publicly to stop the Russians from doing it, because once the Russians already do it, then it's going to be hard to come in and say, oh, this whole thing is fake. But so they're just kind of preempting their preemption. Yeah.
Oh my God, this is a crazy thing. You know, I don't know whose idea is that, Eric. I don't know. Can you talk to them and tell them to stop making, just make a film, you know, just make a movie.
I think, you know, Putin's got all kinds of tricky things up his sleeve, so I think this is one of them. But the U.S. found out at first and spoiled their plot. So the film looks like it's going to be dead before it even starts. But how great would that have been if they could have done this and gotten away with it, and then we found out that the film was fake?
Yeah, I know. It's going to be funny.
That could have been
anyway.
hilarious.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's go to Ingrid of Las Piñas. Okay. Who are the top 4 aides of Prime Minister Boris Johnson quits, and why? Why did they quit? Who are
Well,
those?
first of all, as we talked about last week, the ship is sinking. Boris Johnson, the prime minister, could be out of a job soon because of, and we said this before, Boris Johnson partying. Now, he
Yeah.
always looks like he's kind of had a few drinks earlier in the day because his hair's always messed up. But he had a bunch of parties during the lockdowns in England, and this is a problem because this has brought to light, you know, the fact that while the people of the UK were suffering, he was having a party. And because of this, and because this news broke, his power has been spiraling out of control. And now the head of policy, the chief of staff, the private secretary and the communications director are all resigning. And, you know, right now, like we were talking about last week, and even this past week, Boris Johnson is trying everything he can do to justify these parties during the hardcore lockdown. However, the hole he is digging is getting deeper and deeper as he continues to look worse and worse as he's trying to hold on to his job. And some, you know, of the high-enders in the government there in Ukraine are saying, okay, these people did not quit because of the parties. They quit because of what Boris Johnson has said about the leader of the opposition party, that while he was serving as the prosecutor, he failed to prosecute this notorious pedophile or whatever. But they believe that Boris Johnson shouldn't be commentating on that, especially when he has all these problems. But it's plain for me to see that, you know, when somebody's down and they're doing, you know, they did something bad in the UK, they're just going to keep kicking him while he's down. So if he says something that's sort of out of line, they're going to blow it up like a big balloon because they want him out. And one thing I believe that's happening right now is once he jumps ship, you don't want to be anywhere near that life raft. If Boris Johnson's on a life raft out in the middle of the ocean, you want him to be out there by himself. You do not want to be connected with him in any way because your political career may go down the soup.
Yes.
In any case, so I think that's why a lot of these people are starting to resign, and I think a lot more are going to start to resign as he slowly gets pushed out of office.
Well, that's the sad part, you know, when you are so popular in a good way, everybody want to get close to you. But if there's a problem already, they will be running away from you, and we call it politics.
Yes, and that's what we told before. We said before, we didn't want Boris Johnson to get kicked out of office because he makes it much easier for people not to have to comb their hair in the morning because he never combs his hair.
I'm going to send him some comb.
I would.
Anyway, let's go to Maloob, Manila. Christian school asks parents to sign contract that could exclude gay and transgender student in Australia. What do you know? And is this fair?
Well, yeah, okay. So there's a Christian school in Brisbane, and before you can enroll your child, you must sign a contract saying that your kid is not a transgender or a gay, and in the contract you must state that homosexuality is a sin and compare homosexuality to bestiality, incest, and pedophilia.
Wow.
Also, it says that if you enroll your kid, they must come into the school as their birth sex. It can't be anything different, and that their sexual orientation or their gender or any kind of activity involving sex of a gay nature will be your kid's expulsion from the school. So, guess what happened when they had this contract?
What?
Outrage.
Of course.
There's outrage everywhere. So the head of the school had to withdraw his enrollment contract, and they had to make a statement that the college does not discriminate against any student because of their sexuality or gender identity, and it is in the central part of our faith that being gay or being transgender, gender in no way diminishes a person's humanity or dignity in God's eyes. This comes after 150,000 signatures on a petition demanding that the contract be revoked. But here's the thing, and this is an interesting story about this because there's 1,700 kids at this college, including primary grades, and even if they remove this contract, it still stands to reason that if you're gay, they don't want you there. I mean, this contract, if you read it, I read the parts of the thing. I mean, it's hardcore. I mean, they really go after, they say, they compare, being gay as a sin, and they compare it to bestiality. Now, in the Bible, there's bestiality all over the place. I mean, I won't even go into the particulars of it, but, if you are a private school, do you have the right to be able to say who can come to your school based on their sexual orientation, because you're a private school? Now, you've been chartered by the government, but you're still a private school. So this is an interesting question. Now, these people at this school realized that they needed to take a quick about face because they had a 150,000 signature petition against them. So this is an interesting subject. Does the school have the right to kick you out because you are a transgender? In the United States, they tried to kick out all the transgender military people. When Trump came in, he said, no more transgender. And like some of these people had been there for their whole life. They'd been in the military. So, and then now the people that are at the school who are gay, what are they going to feel like? Yeah. I mean, they know that there was a contract saying that they should be removed from the school. So it's an interesting subject in Australia and in other schools in the rest of the world. Religious schools. Our religious schools, do they have the ability to say who can and cannot go there?
Oh, this is going to be a long debate if they will not resolve this. Long debate from...
Well, I think they've resolved it at the school, but the problem is it's already out there. So if you're gay or you're transgender, do you want to be at that school? But obviously they don't want you there. So I don't know.
I have a solution to that, Eric.
What is that?
Make a private school for just transgender.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think that you're... Okay, you can go to school based on religion because there are certain schools that are there because of religion. There's schools in the Philippines that you can go to, your kid can go to a Christian school or, a Catholic school. And they have schools for, in the United States, they have a school for Jewish children and Muslim children. But to discriminate or make a school based on your sexual orientation, that is a fine line I'm not sure if I want to cross. So anyway, it's just that, it's food for thought.
Yeah, if that, maybe just a thought, but who knows? Maybe they're
throwing it out there.
Maybe they're listening and they will. That's a good idea. Maybe we should make one. You can get Eric and me as your director. We'll help you. Anyway,
I don't think so.
Let's go to Miriam of Antipolo. Can you explain what Pope Francis meant when he said to nuns to fight sexism, and why do you think this is happening in Catholic Church?
Well, okay, jump into a subject that is not far from the one we just talked about.
Yeah.
So, Christianity has been going on since when? 970 AD? When did they start Christianity? I think somewhere around there. So, it's always been run by men. Pretty much. When you see a woman priest, it's rare. And frankly, it looks kind of odd to most people because men are usually in those positions. Women have not really had much position of power in the church. Women are supposed to be nuns, right? Anyway, that's the way it's been for about, 1900 plus years. But it's the 2020s now. And if you discriminate against women in any way, you're liably going to get a nice bashing on Facebook. So the Pope knows this. So the Pope thought it'd be a good time to address this. And he said that nuns should stand up for their rights. And if they are being treated unfairly, that nuns should fight back. They are there to serve the church, not to serve at the whim of men at the church. So,
Okay.
he's brought this subject up before. He was talking about abuse of power, abuse of consciousness, saying that abuse in the church is not all sexual, which is always, what we think about, but
Yeah.
there's other kinds of abuse. And he said, to the women, to the nuns of the church, you have not become religious to become the cleaners of clergymen. You have a job there to do. And if they treat you like that, then you need to fight back. And these days, if you are being abused as an employee or whatever, and you're a woman, it's easier to fight back now because so much has happened over the last 3 years in that particular subject. So right now, the Pope says, it's a good time for the church to take a look at this. And nuns, you can speak up.
Wow. I
So-
think, I think, like today is the 20th century, so maybe they can change it little by little.
Yeah, I even think it might even be the 21st century.
Yeah,
But and we like the Pope.
Yeah,
the
he's
Pope
very
actually is
open-minded.
not a bad guy.
Yeah.
He makes decent decisions that don't necessarily always go with the historical way of the church, but actually sometimes he looks more toward the future of the church, which I like.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think like we have now the social media. We got a lot of things. So I think people should adjust also in many ways, like even the church issue.
I mean, the Pope, nobody in politics or in high-end government jobs ever admits to anything ever doing wrong.
Yeah.
Like they'll never admit that they ever did anything wrong. And the
Oh, no.
Pope came out and admits, hey, we did something wrong. And he's done that
Yes.
several times. And so I commend him for that. And the fact that he came out and said this about the nuns, I think, it's a good jump or good turn in the right direction of the future of the Catholic Church, which has been having some problems over the last 70 years. So anyway, I think it's a good move by the Pope and good poping.
Yeah, I mean, I like people who are very open-minded and willing to adjust to the new generation or what.
And I think I made up a new word.
Yeah.
Good poping.
Yeah, I think I like that, Eric. Okay, let's go to Mon of Tanay Rizal. Do you think the death of so-called terrorist leader Abu Ibrahim al-Hashim al-Quraishi Islamic State militant group has big impact to the world? What do you think?
The so-called terrorist leader.
Yeah, so-called terrorist.
He is the terrorist.
He is a terrorist, yeah.
He was the leader of, now we were talking about this before, IS. ICE? How do you say it? Not ISIS, just IS, the Islamic State. So there are two different things. There's ISIS, ISIS, and then there's ICE, IS. Anyway, he's known as the destroyer. And he was well-groomed for this position as the head guy of the IS after the death of al-Baghdadi, who was very famous at the time. And this guy, I mean, these guys they know. The U.S. had a $10 million reward on information about this guy's whereabouts. So somebody's going to give him up. People in his building, he was living in a building, apartment building. People knew he was there. So it turns out that all along, they knew exactly where he was. In fact, the United States military practiced. They had props and everything. They practiced going in and getting this guy. When they finally did it, they wanted to make sure that they didn't kill anybody else, like any innocent bystanders or anything, because a lot of times when they go in and they do these things, a lot of people get killed. And so the mission took about 2 hours. They went in after they killed everybody in the firefight that they needed to kill, they surrounded the building. And, the destroyer, he had nowhere to go. So what the destroyer did was he destroyed himself. And so he blew up himself, he blew up his wife, he blew up his 2 children. He set off a bomb on the 3rd floor where their apartment was. So this is how they do it. This is the same thing that al-Baghdadi did. They didn't actually kill al-Baghdadi. He killed himself. He blew himself up, and he blew up his kids. So that's the way these guys kind of, to end their life, that's kind of how they do it, because they don't want to get captured. So this is a blow to IS, the Islamic State. They, they were controlling before parts of Iraq and Syria, and since they've been slowly being pushed out of Syria and Iraq, they have rebuilt, and they're trying to, and now Afghanistan has become a breeding ground for any and all terrorists. And so the new leadership of ISIS was gaining momentum, and then they took this guy out finally. And the U.S. is hoping that by killing this guy, that they will set the Islamic State back a few notches. But as well as everybody else, as soon as they kill one, there's another guy probably already in place, ready to take over. He's been groomed from childhood to come in and take over. So we're pretty sure that this is going to happen. But hopefully it takes a step back. But I mean, it goes to show, especially now, what is going to be the future of Afghanistan. And guys like this, and the fact that more and more groups are forming in Afghanistan now that the United States is not there. And I think that's going to be one of the things that we're going to be looking at. And I have a feeling this is going to come up again here on the World News Jam this year, this particular stories about what our terrorist groups are forming and what is coming about in places like Syria.
Well, it will not be really a surprise when it happens, because we expect this already. Ah, boy. I mean, for me, it's sad for the family. But
what can we do?
you do?
I mean, I hate the fact that they got to blow up the kids too.
Yeah, I mean, wow.
they got to blow themselves up. They blow up their wife, and then they blow up the kids.
Yeah.
If the kids get captured, they're not going to probably go to prison. They're little kids.
Yeah.
So I just, I'm surprised al-Baghdadi did the same thing. All his 6 kids, he blew them all up.
I think probably this is just part of their belief or religion that if you will die, you have to go together to that. I mean, I don't know, but this thought.
I don't know. I think that it's more of an ego thing.
Yeah, maybe.
It's like, you're not going to kill my kids. I'm going to kill them. I'm going to be the one to kill them.
Yeah, I mean, all right. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we don't want killing Eric, so we have another. This is not killing. This is from Vian of Manila. Manila. What is this UK virginity testing? Can you explain more of this issue?
The virginity test.
Yes.
Yes, the virginity test, which tells you if a woman has had sex with, also known as the purity test. This has been going on in the UK for 1,000 years. Young girls promise to a rich husband, but he's got to make sure that she's untouched. And if she is touched, usually then the deal's off. The problem is the test. And, I don't want to go into details. I mean, they call it, it's the finger test, where they have to, check and test the size and whether it's been stretched, or it's extremely unreliable. In fact, all through time, sums of money have been paid to the women checkers to make sure that the outcome is whatever's needed for the marriage to take place or not to take place. And this happened with several women in royal circles who were promised to kings, and they had to pay off the woman who was doing the checking. Anyway, I go through history. But what's interesting about this story is it's still going on.
Up to now.
It's going on now in the UK, especially immigrants coming into the airport, sometimes forced to take these tests. They say to check their age, or if they're coming into marriage. They're coming in to marry a man and to see, if the marriage is for real. In 1980, supposedly, 140 Southeast Asian women were subject to some kind of test at the airport.
Oh my God.
And this is, we're not talking about 1200 AD, where somebody's promised to the ruler of that country. This is the UK now. So I'm just very surprised that this is coming up in the government now on that they need to do something about this. And they keep saying, well, the reason we do this is we're trying to show that, some people are coming to the UK, that their marriage is a sham. So seeing if the hymen, the part of the woman's anatomy, is broken, this will prove if the marriage is real or not real, or if the woman has borne children before. Because a lot of women will come into the UK and they will lie about their age and they'll lie about whether they're getting married or not. So, but a lot of people believe this is a really bad practice.
Well,
and they can't believe that it's still in use. I can't believe they're still doing it at the UK airport.
wow. Actually, to be honest, this is the first time I heard about this kind of story. And today, like I said earlier, it's 21st century already. I mean, why do we still have that? I mean, I don't know. I don't understand really.
They have it in the Philippines. People still do it in the Philippines. You can,
well, it's not.
I hear about it all the time. So
yeah,
anyway,
but,
it's not at the airport, but when a young girl is promised to a guy, the family will have her checked. And I hear about this every so often here in this country. Now, in places like India, it's common practice. They do it all the time there because, especially, these very young girls. Now, in the Philippines, I might just want to point out that you can't get married. Wait a minute. Has that law been passed yet? I think it has, or it's on its way to the Senate. You can't get married under the age of 18.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about this before, that they're trying to pass a law that no more marriages under the age or living partners under the age of 18. But in places like the UK and especially in India, this is still going on, that they have virginity testing.
Okay.
And it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, just to think about
you're a young girl, and they have to put you on I don't want to go into details on what they do, but it's not a pleasant experience. Anyway, they're trying to ban this in the UK now.
I think they have to, think about this first, study it well, and, maybe they need to change it already.
Yeah. I do too. I think this is
there's
no
a lot
point.
of British people that comes to the Philippines, and they're just shopping for women. I mean, we don't,
this can go into many, many different subjects.
I know,
on this,
right?
but,
I mean, this
it's one of those things that it is a non-reliable test. And, the fact that you're doing this test to try and check the age of the girl, you can't check the age of the girl by this.
I know, this is insane. I mean, okay.
So
All
anyway,
right, let's talk to the queen.
Stop doing that. Let's talk to the queen.
All right. Now, let's
Among
move.
other things we need to talk to her about.
Yeah, let's go to Jeff of Makati. In the news, President Xi and President Putin are getting closer, but deteriorating with the West. Your thoughts?
Well, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Couldn't be more true right now. The Olympics is underway. And now
Yes.
that China is amidst a whole bunch of turmoil in this Olympics, which we've talked about, many countries are boycotting the sending of officials because of China's horrible human rights record, issues that they have with human rights. So what's a better time for one of the biggest human rights abusers in history, Vladimir Putin, to show up at the Olympics, which he did. It'll give a chance to touch base with President Xi, and they can trade human rights stories about things that they have done. So, they can sit back and have a vodka and an egg roll, I guess. But, the serious part about this is they now have, in the Olympics right now, their similar enemies are not there because they're all boycotting the Olympics. So the United States and Europe and all these countries are not going to show up because they are boycotting this over the human rights abuses. So this is a good time to come in and, right now Russia is trying to take over the Ukraine and China is on the verge of taking over Taiwan. So looks like it could be a good time to get together. They both have the same problem, and that is the United States. If Trump would have been elected, this would go much easier. But he didn't get elected, so they're back to square one. And you can't go up against the U.S., and they know this, because when you go up against the U.S., that comes with Australia and the EU and NATO and the rest of Asia, and it's just too much to go against the rest of the world, no matter how big your military is. So the big question, I think, is, in this subject, if Russia invades the Ukraine and the U.S. slams them with sanctions, which is what they've said they're going to do, will China pick up the slack? Will China begin to trade with Russia to make up for all the things? Will Russia divert its gas products to China? We talked about this before. When this war starts, and it looks like it's going to, then sanctions will kick in and Russia cannot sell natural gas to Europe. So it will kill the economy of Russia. What is it? 35% of their economy is based on this natural gas. Is there a chance that Russia will divert that to China? Will China start trading with Russia? Will China help Russia out because of the sanctions that they will get slammed with the rest of the world? So, Putin right now, he was talking about Xi, and he referred to him as his dear friend. So, he's back in China during this boycott of the entire world of the Chinese games. So, it just gives these two giant nuclear powers a chance to throw their weight around because they're maybe teaming up. And if they do team up, what is that going to mean? And how's the U.S. going to deal with that?
Well, all they need to do is sit down, have coffee, talk about issues. Don't make war. Don't, just be friends. We are here, people.
Lolly, Putin and Biden are never going to be friends. I can just tell you this right now. Putin and Donald Trump were best buds.
Oh, yes.
Because Trump would do anything that Putin said. He loved Putin. But Biden does not like Putin at all in any way. And he's already, they're already and the fact that the United States is now, this week, sending troops to the Ukraine.
Yeah.
And now things are starting to escalate. And the fact that Russia wants to make a video.
Oh, my goodness. What are these people thinking? Anyway, let's go to Minda Pasig. Okay, a little lighter question here. Okay, New Zealand planning to open the world after 2 years of COVID restrictions. Good idea?
Well, as you all know, we love New Zealand here on the show, and they are opening. But as usual, New Zealand is doing things very smart and very calculated. It's a 5-stage plan over 9 months, starting February 27th. The people of Australia who have 2 doses of the vaccine will be able to fly to New Zealand. Then on March 13th, other countries will be added to the list. Each person that comes into the country will have to do an at-home quarantine based on whatever country they were coming from. And in April, they're going to start letting students back. Then, if I understand it right, in July, normal visa, anybody that is on a visa-free country can travel back to New Zealand. So that's what they were doing. They wanted to do this before, but then Omnichrome started, and they had to push it back to February. But that's what they're doing in New Zealand. Very smart, very calculated, and they think that's the best way to slowly open back up New Zealand, and I tend to agree.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, or maybe Maybe her wedding will push through already.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Good
we
luck
talked
in the
about,
wedding.
Yeah, because we talked about this last week, Eric.
Yes. They had to put their wedding off because she wants to be like any normal, regular person and do things as if anybody else would. So they put their wedding off to another time because right now they have an issue with the Omnichrome variant, which is spreading through New Zealand. Good job
Yep, congratulations.
to the Prime Minister of New Zealand.
All right, let's go to Mileto Pasay. Why did an Australian mining magnate take legal action against Facebook?
All right. This is something that we should pay attention to. I mean, it sounds like an esoteric story, but it's not. This billionaire dude is tired of people saying things about him on Facebook that are not true. And he claims that Facebook was criminally reckless because it didn't take action against these criminals that make advertisements for things to Australian users with his face on it. They're defrauding people from Australia, and Facebook knows it, and they let it happen anyway. So Facebook has a policy that you can't use someone's image to say you're selling a product when that person has nothing to do with it, and then defraud them or scam them with the product using this person's image. You can't do that. It's against their policy, and they're letting it happen. So this guy is like, I'm suing you.
Wow. For how much? Did you know?
He, right now, he is trying to say they are criminally reckless. So it's going to the prosecution and so forth to see if they're actually, it's a criminal liability. So I don't know how much, if there's money involved in a civil trial, but he's definitely going to go after them criminally. But this goes on to show, like in the Philippines right now, if you go on Facebook, there's ads for stuff. You can buy this thing or you can buy that thing, and then you buy it, and then it shows up and it's not the thing that's in the thing, and you've already paid for it, and now there's no recourse. This happens all the time in the Philippines. It even happens with some of the big, sellers. But some of these, they show videos, and it's amazing looking product, and wow, look what it does. And so you order it, and it comes, and it's nothing like what's in the picture. And people are getting scammed all the time by these things because you type in, paint sprayer. Now all of a sudden you've got 1,000 ads that, trying to sell you a paint sprayer. So I think this stuff goes on everywhere, and I think Facebook needs to do something about it.
Yeah, I believe they really have to do, because I'm one of the victim of Facebook ads. So.
Yeah, me too. That's what I'm saying about it. I have ordered things on Facebook, and they showed up, and they were not anything what the ad said that they were. Yeah, and so I think Facebook needs to either stop this or challenge some of these things that are popping up on Facebook, because they are defrauding the people of the country.
I know, right? It's all over the world, and then especially now with the politics. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go now to Eddie of Pasig. Let's go local, Eric. What is your expectation in our forthcoming national election? Oh my God.
Touching these hot potatoes. Let me say first that here on the show, we are not pro or anti any candidate. I'm not pro anti-Lenny. I'm not pro anti-Manny. I'm pro fact. That's what I will say here on the show. So with that said, there are currently all kinds of conflicts in this election over one candidate. We know it's in the news all the time. Everything from his supporters in the Senate who are holding up the release of the cases against him in the Comelec because he is a tax evader. Like I said, we're just talking about the facts, or the hordes of misinformation being put out on Facebook regarding Lenny. The hundreds of accounts on Twitter that have been removed. These are the things that we're talking about. The issues on whether the gold or the stolen money will be returned from the time of the Marcos family when they, all that stuff went. If he is elected, will the money be returned? The interest in China in getting Bongbong Marcos elected. The fact that he doesn't want to show up for interviews where he doesn't get to pick the questions. The fact that he keeps saying he went to Oxford, he got a degree from Oxford. We know this isn't true. The fact that he wants to strengthen the PCGG, anti-corruption, that office was put in place because of his family. So what's the expectation of this upcoming election? Right now, I believe that meaningful issues, things that we need to be talking about, are going to fall into the background because of all these other things. This election, I think, or so far, and here again, I'm not trying to be anti or pro any candidate. I am not voting in this election. I'm an American citizen. You know, I'm very interested in what goes on in the United States elections. But here, I'm more interested in the fascination I have that I believe that this election is really going to be based on misinformation presented in Facebook. And this is how this election is going to be decided. So far, as what I've seen so far, you know, when I talk to people in this country about this election and who they are supporting, and they say, you know, I'm supporting Marcos. I'm like, okay, fine. You know, why? Why are you supporting him? The same thing I ask if people tell me that they're voting for Manny Pacquiao. I say, why? Why are you voting for him? And when they talk about Bongbong Marcos, they say, I'm supporting him because he's the best thing for the Philippines. And I'm like, well, why? What good things has he done for the Philippines? What has made your decision? Why do you want to vote for him? And the next word, mostly out of the next thing, well, I saw on Facebook. And a lot of times when you make a comment about Bongbong, any of the things that I said before, any things about, you know, China wanting him to be elected or whatever it might be, and you ask about the other candidates, they'll say, well, you know, Lenny, she doesn't know how to answer questions. And I go, well, what question? What question are you talking about? Well, it told me that on Facebook. Almost everybody I talk to, the word Facebook keeps coming up. So the question is, you know, is Facebook going to decide this election, or are any of the issues, which you really haven't talked about that much, going to be the thing that's going to decide it? So that's my answer for my expectation in the forthcoming election. Not who's going to win. You know, all of the candidates are the same to me. People keep saying, well, because of what you said, you must be anti-Marcos, or you must be pro-Aquino. Now, as far as I know, there's no Aquinos running in the election, so I don't know how anybody could be pro-Aquino for the election. But the thing that I'm fascinated about mostly right now is how many people are swayed by what is on Facebook, not on what the politicians are saying. And can this election be decided on misinformation that's coming out of China troll places?
All right. Okay. That is a comment of Mr. Lecain. But you know what? All Filipinos will be the one to decide who will be the next president of our country. And I am going to vote. You are not going to vote, Mr. Lecain, because you're an American.
That's why I can be either way, because I'm not voting.
I mean, you know, okay, I'll tell you the day before. I'm sure we're gonna have a show before the election. I'm gonna tell you whom to vote, or maybe after. Maybe we can just toss the coin. Who's going to win? I know who's going to win. Me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vote for Lali Tolentino.
Yes.
But you know, like I'm saying, you know, you said the Filipinos are going to decide this election.
Of course.
Are they? Are they the ones that are going to decide this election, or is it another country? Is another country going to decide this election? And this, you know, people go, oh no, that's not. You know what? There's a little bit of something to this, I have to say, because a lot of people, like I said, I talk to a lot of people, and I ask them the same questions. And when I ask people questions, I don't pick one side or the other, or you shouldn't vote for this person, whatever. No, I go right down the middle, like, why are you voting for them? And a lot of times it comes from something that they read on Facebook, and a lot of times the thing that they say is something that has to do with some kind of misinformation that's coming on Facebook. And we know that a lot of this information is coming from troll farms in China, because they've already looked into this.
Okay.
So, you know, so the point that I'm making is, yes, okay, the Philippines will decide, but is it the Philippines making up their own minds, or is someone else making up their minds for them?
I think Filipinos are making our, you know, we are the one voting.
Because in my experience in talking to the people that I'm talking to, that's not the case.
Oh, no, because you know what? Because, you know, a lot of people are like watching this. It's not the Facebook also. People are watching the television now. I mean, whatever interview they're watching, even though Marcos is not joining the, you know, this two, you know, event, but he is doing his own thing.
He's
mean,
doing
you know,
cooking shows.
yeah,
He's a pretty good cook, it looks like. I saw him cooking on the
you know,
show.
it just, it's okay, give it to him. If he doesn't want to join any of those
Of course he doesn't want to join. Why would he want to join? He's gonna, if he says something wrong, he's in the lead right now. His people don't want him talking on TV. They want him doing something where they provide the questions for him.
If that's the case, so the people, in his camp are doing the right thing, if that's the case. So why will you
Yeah, but what kind of president is it going to be if he can't take hard questions?
Because you know what? Okay, it's not only you cannot just base everything, what they can do on the interview. I mean, you know what? Like we said before, you will only know if this guy will deliver when they're already in power. Now they can talk all the sweet talk. I mean, we know what I meant, right, Eric? But then, the only time.
But we're not talking about any issues. We're talking about him all the time because every week he does something. Every week he will do something controversial. He won't show up. He'll say that he's going to do the interview. He'll say the time, and then he won't show up because he finds out that he cannot be the one to make the questions that they're going to ask him.
Okay, and that's the case. For me, because I watch all this debate already, it is very clear what he wants to do.
He hasn't shown up for any debates, and he may not show up for any.
It doesn't matter if he showed up because he has his own,
Really?
PR. Yeah, Eric. Okay, let's wait for the.
You don't think that he needs to show up for a debate? You don't think he can argue? He
will,
can't argue
I'm
against
sure he
Lenny
will.
Ribeiro. How is he going to argue against?
No,
anybody?
you know what? We're not going to elect somebody. Just because he's a good debater, he is a good good talker, whatever. No, we will not. We will just vote for the right person, based on our
you
belief.
need to vote for somebody who can speak to world leaders.
No,
who's not a weak guy who won't show up for any of this stuff.
No, that's not
I'm just
an
saying.
issue.
I'm just I'm not.
Yeah, no, Eric. But we are Filipinos. We know who are we going to vote. Okay, it's not. We are not voting for an American. We're voting for Filipinos. So
well, you might be voting for a Chinese guy if you're not careful.
Well, maybe a Chinese, your favorite people? I think so, right?
No, New Zealanders are.
Okay, all right. All right, let's go to Jim of Manila. Do you think pandemic is close to the word over?
And the answer is, wait a minute, read the question again. Do you think what did he say?
Do you think pandemic is close to the word over?
The answer is no.
Yeah.
No. I don't think it's over.
There's so many variants.
It's just, every week we say it's over. And then every week it's not. Let me just say the number of countries in the first 5 weeks of 2022, which is where we are now, with 0 cases for the last 4 weeks is 2. 2 countries. 44 countries are having twice as many cases as they had before in the previous 4 weeks. 50 with more cases, and then 41 with fewer cases, and 49 with less than half cases in the last 4 weeks. So there you go. And what's interesting is the countries that have twice as many cases in the last 4 weeks as they had in the previous month, South Korea, Japan. Now, let me just say, one of the countries that sticks out, I was going through all these lists all week. I always watch, the countries and how they're doing in COVID. One of the countries that came out this week that had fewer cases this month than they had last month was the Philippines. Interesting that the Philippines, which we keep talking about the cases going up, but actually the Philippine cases are actually going down.
Yep.
So, but is the pandemic over? Because a few cases are going down. So, no. I think the cases are going to go back up. I think they're going to fluctuate. I think there's going to be more variants to come. If last year is any indication of what's been going to go on this year, I don't think it's over yet. I don't think it's going to be over for a while.
Yeah.
I just think we're going to learn to defend ourselves against it.
Yeah.
But if we just stop and say it's over, then we may be in serious trouble. And then all of a sudden there may be 80 countries that are double the cases every month. But right now, I just found it very fascinating that the Philippines is in one of the countries that is now less cases this month than they were last month.
In the Philippines, you will always find something. So that's one thing. All
I
right,
have
let's
no idea what Lolly Tolentino just said. So if you know, please explain it to me.
Yeah, I will explain it to you later because we have more questions. Okay, let's go to Arnold of Makati. What is your prediction as to when the Philippines economy will recover?
Oof, man, this is a hard one. The Philippines was down 9.6%, and then it was up 5%, and then it moved to 7.7%. Then the previous quarter, it was 6.6%. I don't know. I mean, then Omnichrome came in. Some estimates are, The Economist, I think, was talking about this. It may take 10 years for the Philippine economy to recover from this. All the money that the Philippines has borrowed over the last 2 years, I mean, the Philippines is down $810 billion, not pesos, dollars. That's trillions of pesos. And so how long is it going to take? And they're going to be borrowing and borrowing over the next decades. How long is it going to take to recover from this, to get back to before the pandemic, when the GDP was what, 6.4? We had an average of 6.4 growth. The Philippines was in one of the top Asian countries in growth over the past, 15 years? Or not 15 years, 10 years, where they've been averaging 6.4, or I think it's 8.5 years. I can't remember the exact number, but where they've been averaging that 6.4 GDP. And then the pandemic came, and then, the bottom dropped out. 70% of the workforce did not work. For how long? Now, there's an interesting point to this. Looking at the economy, the Philippines has had how many? 54,000 deaths? 54,000 deaths, and there's 110 million people in this country.
Yeah.
The United States just surpassed 900,000 deaths.
Wow.
So
We are...
would it, 54,000 deaths over 2 years. What other things did that many people die from in the Philippines? So what I'm saying is, the point that I'm making is, yes, if the Philippines had not done all these lockdowns, would the deaths be higher? Would it be a lot higher?
Yeah.
Would the economy had to take such a hit if they had not done all these lockdowns? If you look at the percentages of 54,000 deaths in a country with 110 million people, I mean, it really is pretty small. Now, we don't want to have, if we had 54,000 deaths, we don't want to have 54,001. One death is too many, is too many. But still, the question is, were the lockdowns that killed this economy worth it?
For my personal point of view, yes.
Because
it helps. The lockdown, it helps.
I mean, it helped. If you look at the number of people who died from other things, 54,000 people doesn't seem, an enormous number compared to other countries. So I don't know what to say here. I'm not sure if I don't know what point to make. But as far as when will the economy come out of this, boy, that's a really tough decision. Even if you're an economist, what do you say to something like this, to $810 billion? How would the Philippines ever recover from this? And the answer is, I'm not an economist to be able to tell you this. I can give you numbers and I can give you estimates, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough couple of years.
Yeah, and we know that this pandemic will not be over, so we know there's a lot of things going to happen. So we just have to pray that, no more, I cannot say that no more virus, but, how can we recover?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Philippines is going to plateau soon with the virus because, like I said, cases are going down, and the Philippines is starting to understand what they're going to do. They've got a plan. I mean, I'm behind what Duterte has been kind of doing recently, so I think he's on the right track. Now they're going to have to start the cleanup, just like we did with storms. Storm's over, everything's back, electricity's back on, internet's back on. Now we got to figure out how we're going to get cleaned up.
Yeah.
So speaking of cleaning up, Lolly Tolentino, we need to clean up the show here because we are out of time. How's that for a segue?
Yeah.
But thank you to all the viewers out there who sent in questions this week. We had some great, interesting questions. Thank you so much, Lolly Tolentino.
You're welcome,
for
Eric.
all the things. So for everyone here at the World News Jam on DZ, RJ, and RJTV, thank you so much for being with us this week. Please come and join us again next week, and be safe out there. We'll see you then.
The views and comments of the hosts and guests